Badger Politics. I'm Scott Stern.
This is Paul Sickle.
Hey, Paul, any news today?
Just another day in the impeachment.
The House Intelligence Committee public hearings on the impeachment. Mm-hmm. So we had Bill Taylor, who's the charge d'affaires, basically the acting ambassador of Ukraine. And then we
From the United States.
Yes. And then
a guy named Kent, right?
Yes.
Tuck. So
Mr. George Kent, who is the Deputy Assistant Secretary for European and Eurasian Affairs.
So what was the biggest takeaway from this whole thing?
So there was a phone call that took place on July 26th, which is one day after Trump's phone call to Zelensky, head of Ukraine.
Oh, I thought it was the alderman. It was about the tower he was building on the South Shore Drive here. South Superior Street, Zelensky.
Tony Zelensky.
Oh,
yes,
it's not Tony Zelensky.
Trump's phone call to Tony Zelensky.
It's okay. Well, that's what Uncle Rick was telling me about. That Tony Zelensky was bringing in the deep state.
Right. So Taylor, Mr. Bill Taylor, testified that, he, quote, the member of my staff could hear President Trump on the phone asking Ambassador Sondland about the investigations. Ambassador Sondland told President Trump that the Ukrainians were ready to move forward. So this was, again, a day after the Trump phone call to Zelensky. That happened like mid-meeting today. And so they've already scheduled this guy to testify, this aide to testify on Friday in closed committee. So I guess his name is Mr. David Holmes. So it won't be public testimony, but it will be under oath, and it will be before the committee. So that's newsworthy because it just lends credence to the whole argument that this was kind of a tit for tat.
Mm-hmm. So then what happens tomorrow, is it?
Friday we have Marie Yovanovitch, who was the former ambassador to Ukraine, who was ousted in spring because she was not viewed as a loyalist and not seen as a team player to Mr. Trump's mission in that part of the world. She was fired, essentially.
Yeah.
So I think it will be interesting to see what she has to say.
Right. So, meanwhile, are we losing any... because this is about Joe Biden, candidate for president.
Yeah.
Right? So are we losing any candidates for president?
The Republicans are looking at it two ways.
Mm-hmm.
Because the reason they want this to be about the Bidens is, A, to damage Biden and his candidacy for president because he's leading Trump in every poll that's taken in a head-to-head matchup. Mm-hmm. So either he comes into the primary or comes out of the primary as damaged goods, or they succeed in damaging him to the point where he doesn't make it out of the primary.
Right.
So that's why they're going to continue to harp on this, is because it could...
Well, now we got Hillary Clinton says she might want to run. She says many people have asked her to run, and she can never say never.
Yeah, she's not.
And Michael Bloomberg.
Yeah,
I think there was at least one other name recently that came up.
Deval Patrick,
right,
is looking to jump in.
So the field grows.
Yeah, except
looks like Julio Castro might be on his way out.
Nobody that jumps in this late in the game is going to succeed unless it's somebody that's really being clamored for, where there's a grassroots campaign to really move this thing forward.
There you go, drop Hillary. Forward.
Yeah, because there's a grassroots campaign for Hillary. That's happening.
Yeah, you never know.
She's not running.
So it's going to be Mayor Pete?
Well, he is surging in Iowa.
Right.
As we've been talking about.
I think Biden actually might still wind up being basically what McCain was in 2008.
Kind of the heir apparent.
Well, he got the nomination. He was about done. People pronounced the campaign dead a million times.
Yeah.
And then eventually he got the nomination anyway, because all the other candidates kind of faltered. Of course, he lost the presidency, and that's, of course, a risk with Biden or really any of these candidates, if you ask me.
Yes.
Because, if you ask Uncle Rick, this is all just a big deep state conspiracy.
Mm-hmm. Well, you don't have to ask Uncle Rick. Trump said as much today when he put out a video as the testimony was occurring about how this is just the deep state, fighting back, and I'm trying to take him out, and That's
Right.
that's the route he's taking,
Right.
because he's got to keep his base happy and
You've got
rallied and everything.
people saying George Soros controls the State Department now.
Yeah. But then you have guys like, Congressman Jim Jordan, this tool on the committee, talking to Bill Taylor. He said straight out, like, this never happened. This never happened. And Jim Jordan can say that because he's not under oath. He's sitting there behind his microphone.
What he's
just
trying to do is
spout off
invoke the hearsay rule, though.
What's that?
He's trying to invoke the hearsay rule.
Well, of course.
He's not being very articulate about it. He's just...
Yeah.
But he doesn't need to be.
But again,
because his followers aren't going to give a shit about that.
Sure.
This is all very interesting. I'm just going to say anecdotally from what I've heard, and I do know that there's been a lot of field efforts already underway. There's been quite a bit of polling, too, in Wisconsin, which is considered the ultimate swing state. Around lots of issues, and impeachment almost never comes up. It's like it's a real non-issue in most voters' minds.
Right. I mean, there's a few things I would say. The impeachment exercise so far has done some damage in terms of the polling. If the polling from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution is to be believed, a majority of voters in that state, in Georgia, support the inquiry.
Which was a swing state,
in
fairness.
So I'm just saying the needle is being moved in the direction of those that support this inquiry.
Yeah, but it was a very slight, it was 47-43 or something like that. It was very slight, I thought.
But that's different than what you saw several months ago where it was like in the 20s of most people that support it. So that's why I'm saying, like, that if you look at the direction, there's something to be said. It's notable. Now, I come back to, we don't know where this is going, and now there's talk about, from the Republican senators that, we're going to drag this out into the new year and for several weeks, and that'll hamper several candidates that are currently serving in the U.S. Senate in terms of their campaigns.
For president.
Yeah, and I don't know if I necessarily buy that. I think that comes through as kind of an idle threat because it's not in their interest coming out of the holidays to have the first story of the new year really be about all the dirty laundry going on with the Trump campaign to kind of kick off the election effort. I don't know that's necessarily a good move on their part. Yeah, it would hamstring the campaign efforts of these senators that are running, like Warren and Sanders and Harris and others. But I just, I think it's an idle threat. Now, the other thing I would say, from Trump's perspective, and we talked about this a little bit before the recording, is I think a good argument on his part is really to kind of tie this all up into foreign aid as a political issue and say, yeah, absolutely, I withheld the aid from Ukraine. You know what? I think we should do this more. I think we give too much money to these other countries. I think we should bring that money back home and focus on our roads and our bridges.
But then the question would be, how come he hasn't pulled the trigger on other countries?
Yeah, why hasn't he cut...
they don't have political favors.
He also campaigned on eliminating the debt and the deficit. Where is that? I mean, he's doubled it.
Right.
So, I mean, there's what he says and what he does, and it doesn't really make a difference as long as he tells his supporters what they want to hear.
So it says Deval Patrick is in starting tomorrow.
Yeah, I read that earlier too.
Wow, and he worked for Bain Capital Management. How's that going to fly?
I don't see the groundswell for a Deval Patrick candidacy. So I don't know where that's going.
You still think it's a big four then?
Yeah, I think it's Biden, Sanders, Warren, and
Putin.
Yep.
So, what would you say the odds are of anybody who's not in the big four getting the nomination? Like just 0 to
like just coming out of nowhere.
Well, or a Hillary Clinton, or a Deval Patrick, or Michael Bloomberg, or like a Castro or whatever, Booker.
Virtually non-existent, and Castro didn't even qualify for the debate that's taking place.
Okay, maybe Castro wasn't the best example, but how about Yang? There you go.
No.
Marianne Williamson.
No, she's not qualified for the debate either.
But I might Klobuchar. No, she's like a lot of second choices. She actually did surge a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's probably still some time for her to have a shot, but the window's closing. We're coming up on Thanksgiving, and then nobody's going to pay attention for like a month, and then we're going to hit the new year, and then things will really kick into high gear.
So it's interesting. Trump's approval ratings are now negative 14 points, which is probably one of his worst points. Of his presidency,
coinciding with impeachment.
Yeah.
We are living in very cynical times when you compare us to where we were a few generations ago.
Let me get you back on the record again. What was your odds of somebody not from the Big Four, the field, taking the Democratic nomination?
Probably slim to none.
I think it's going to go to Pete.
You think so?
Yeah.
Well, if he can pull off Iowa, then who knows?
Something tells me the Warren card's going to play itself out.
You think she's peaked too early?
Possibly.
Yeah, that's quite possible.
I just have a feeling. I think I'm going to go with Biden or Pete is going to get it. I could be wrong.
Yeah.
I'm just telling you that's my gut feeling. What are the odds, though, of Trump getting reelected?
Just a straight-up reelect? Probably not far off from his approval rating. Right around 40.
I'll go with 35.
Okay. Wow, I was expecting you to be higher than me.
No. I mean, I still think that's a pretty good chance. That's better than his chances of getting elected would be considered before he was first up. So I would say it's in about the same position he was 4 years ago, more or less.
Yeah.
No, I do think there's reason to believe that. I mean, the thing is, I think he's basically in the same position. The question is whether 2016 was a fluke.
Right.
In the sense that Hillary Clinton didn't campaign in Wisconsin. She lost Wisconsin narrowly. Same with Michigan, and didn't campaign enough in Pennsylvania either.
I think he was a little more Teflon that year. His lowest point was obviously the...
Well, then why would you say he's a better chance than of winning than he would have
because
in the election even
because he's the incumbent.
All right.
That's worth a few points.
All right. Yeah. No, that's a good point.
Yeah.
I'll go with 35, which I still think is about where he was on election eve 16.
Fair.
You'd give him probably about 15%.
I think
percentage points of getting elected, not polling. But you'd say it's really like natural incumbent advantage should be worth 15 or 20%. I take that, and then I just discount it right back because he's so controversial.
Well, and again, I come back to that.
If the economy goes south, I think we start discounting further.
That is a wild card.
Even if it weakens a little bit. Because he's staked his claim so much on it that if the economy, which is fairly okay.
Yeah.
But if it looks...
If it starts turning sour.
If it's even a little sluggish, it's no better than it was 4 years ago, which I think we're pretty close to. Yeah. And if that's how they look at it, then I think he's in trouble because I think 4 years ago the economy was actually fairly strong.
Yeah. You add into that equation some of these other things that didn't exist for him a few years ago because if nothing else is accomplished by the impeachment hearings, it's put him on defense. He's not able to talk about all these other quote-unquote successes right now or the things that he wants his supporters to be talking about. It's all about impeachment.
Yeah, but so did grab her by the P word. Put him on the defense
for a few weeks until he turned it around.
Yeah, he's got 12 months here to turn it around.
Oh, there's the better part of a year,
11 and a half months.
But we have some other things hanging out there as well.
Speaking of really important issues, the state took care of the holiday tree problem. Right?
So the Wisconsin State Legislature always up to the big fights and taking on the critical issues of the day. They were compelled by the governor to have a special session around gun violence.
Gaveled it down, said we're not doing anything.
Yeah, right? Given the mass shootings that have occurred over the past few years. Of course, what they did is they gabbled it in and gabbled it out seconds later, didn't take any action, and then moved on.
Like the red flag laws.
Yeah.
Like the ones that almost everybody supports.
Right.
The red flag
and
laws.
Closing
people
background check, loophole, all these things that they could have talked about.
They protected the rights of criminally insane people to keep their weapons.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
It's ridiculous.
Okay.
They did that. And
meanwhile, Charlotte had to cancel all their schools today because of a threat.
Yeah. Exactly.
Threat. And how do you explain that? Like, my friend was telling me, I was scared. I was petrified for 2 hours this morning about how I'm going to explain it to my 8-year-old.
Why can't you go to school?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, that's ridiculous. So instead of that, They spent their time this week debating the critical question about whether or not the tree that is placed in the Capitol this time of year is a holiday tree or a Christmas tree.
Does that mean they have to take down, chop down the holiday tree and then bring in another tree to replace it?
No, it's still. You know what?
That'd be hard to get through those revolving doors. Yeah, that's not a real narrow. Narrow passageway.
I got a very easy answer for this critical question, Paul. You know what it is? It's a fucking tree. It's a fucking tree with decorations on it. That's what it is. Yeah. Call it a holiday tree. Call it. I don't fucking care. It's a fucking tree. You know, if you celebrate Christmas, great. I don't give a shit. These guys would rather be dealing with this symbolic bullshit rather than actual stuff that makes a difference in people's lives.
Yeah, like making sure that the children of Shorewood can go to school.
Yes.
Exactly. Do not fear a gunman.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there'll be some more news next time. Obviously, more hearings to come around this impeachment stuff. Democrats will have a debate next Wednesday.
Right. And we're sponsoring the Republican presidential debate, right? Between Trump and Bill Weld.
Still haven't...
the Badger Politic Republican primary debate. President Trump has been invited over these
one less candidate.
waves.
One less candidate, though.
We haven't heard back from
Sanford dropped out.
So now all we got is Bill Weld and...
Joe Walsh.
Oh, Joe Walsh. But he's just out... He, lives in Lake County, Illinois.
Yeah, we can invite him up.
30 minutes. He could drive up right now through the snow and make it for bar time.
We got to reach out.
All right.
Maybe Uncle Rick can drive.
Well, maybe if we can't get that, we can get individual interviews with the Republican candidates for president. We might get Joe Walsh. That's a scary part.
We might.
All right. Forward.
It's a fucking tree.